पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम् श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम्
Welcome. Coming to India is always a sadhana. Being in India, being in Rishikesh is always a sadhana. And you, of course, have chosen an even deeper sadhana to actually come for a sadhana program. I mean, just to come at all is sadhana. Then you've chosen to come for an actual sadhana immersion. And the universe decided to give you level 1 through 10 of sadhana all at the same time. This is sort of a 2 for the price of 1 sadhana immersion, I think. The mind, long before we had even TVs, yet smartphones, was already racing. I mean, it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, the reason I'm so distracted is my phone, it beeps and it blips, and this notification and that. But thousands of years ago, when our scriptures were written, we were given instructions about the monkey mind. And this was before television, before a, rotary dial telephone. This was before an airplane. And so even in a world without any distractions other than a random wild animal that might happen to enter your village or your property, nonetheless, the mind was already jumping around so much that the scriptures are teaching techniques and talking about overcoming the monkey mind. And then, of course, we fast forward into today, where every new invention seems to be yet another way to distract yourself. And then we end up in a situation where all the voices anyway that are speaking to us in our mind. One of the things we talk about is all of the inner voices. Typically when we use the word the inner voice, we use it to mean the voice of God, that divine voice. But of course, all of the voices are inner. Desire and fear and ego, and all of it's inner. But then now, especially, we've got all of these voices from outer combining with the voices of inner regarding fear. And regarding this moment where we really have a choice to think about ourselves in exclusion of others, a la go to the store and buy up all the toilet paper. Or it is. I mean, that's actually the really right reaction. It should be a total joke. Unfortunately, it's not. But yeah, we really have reached a point where the only thing to do in many cases about that which is happening is laugh or cry. But we're in this very interesting moment of survival. And survival tends to evoke one of two responses. Either all or the caring for others. And what's so interesting, especially about the coronavirus, with how contagious it is you actually can't. You can't take care of yourself in isolation. At least none of us can. Nobody living in community these days can do that. Because if anyone in a community gets sick, the whole community gets sick. And so we've actually been offered this really extraordinarily exquisite opportunity to realize in a microcosm the truth of where we are in the planet on a macro level. Because long before coronavirus hit, there were a lot of other things, and still are, that are threatening our world, much worse than coronavirus. And our illusion of separation and this sort of what I want, how I want it, when I want it, kind of all for me mentality of most of the first world, the people with the luxury to choose, making lifestyle decisions in a vacuum, thinking that I actually can be in peace while the rest of the world is suffering, that I actually can be really healthy on a full level while the rest of the world is suffering. And coronavirus, interestingly, has come in and has, in some places, just exacerbated that, but where people are going to realize very, very quickly it doesn't work. And those of us in community realize that immediately, which is, oh, wait, there is no me separate from you. We're all touching the same doorknobs. I mean, literally. And so on just the most basic, logistic, tangible level, you realize, oh, wait, any of our survival depends on all of our survival. And it's such an extraordinary opportunity. If you can work with your mind enough to keep it from doing the thing that most of our minds do first, which is buy up all the toilet paper, buy up all the canned foods, lock me up in a room and just kind of wait for this to go over. If we can be free of that instinct and indoctrination and actually realize how we have to protect ourselves and survive as a community, that lesson is really what our world needed. And I'm someone with a very, very deep belief in meaning behind things, and there being a point to things, and things not being just random, and there being karmic intersections and karmic threads weaving together into a tapestry that if only we could step back from, we'd be able to see. And I feel like one of the really big aspects of this from that tapestry is this awareness that none of us is safe unless all of us are safe. And this lesson, if we really take it in and we learn it well, is the lesson that we were supposed to learn from this. We live in a global world. I mean, yeah, the countries these days, they're going to try to close their borders, and then they're going to realize, well, that didn't work so well. And it's okay. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think there was a manual that they got on what to do about this. So they're all doing the best that they can. We all do the best we can. But they're going to realize that closing down doesn't work. Because it's already inside. It's in all of the countries already. And we're going to have to come up with something else. And I don't know what that's going to be. But what I do know very deeply is that this is a lesson for us. And it's a lesson on so many levels. Number one, and I think most importantly, it's a lesson about fear. And it's interesting because all of us, not all of us in the world, but all of us in this room, because everyone sitting in this room is here because we're on a spiritual path. Because we have understood that the voices of society that have said, buy more and you will be happy, aren't right. We've heard them, we've listened to them, we've followed them for a variety of years of our lives, realized it doesn't work. A lot of us have bought into a lot of other things society has told us. Oh, you need to have this type of a degree, or this type of a career, or this type of a family, or this type of a lifestyle, and that's what you need for happiness. And we've done that. And then we realize, oh wait, that also isn't true. And so this is a room full of people who have had practice at noticing values, ethics, priorities, teachings, constructs that have come into us from outside that aren't us, and that actually are not in alignment with the truth of who we are, and being able to realize that within ourselves, otherwise you wouldn't be here. You'd be sitting back at home making money so you could shop more, or you'd be in some shopping, hub of the world. You'd be in Paris or Milan or somewhere shopping. If you're here, it's because you have successfully learned which voices are not self. And this is a very important skill these days, because we are all getting bombarded with voices that are not self. Voices of fear. Voices telling us to be afraid, be very afraid. This is going to be kind of the end of the universe. And it's a very, very, very interesting time for us to hold so many different truths simultaneously. On a spiritual level, I don't know how many of you were with us last week at the International Yoga Festival, but we had these beautiful sessions each day, the spiritual lecture series, where we had different leaders from different areas and lineages, and we spoke about so much each day, and I had such a beautiful honor and blessing and joy of being on these panels with people like Dr. Bruce Lipton, where we would speak about this place of we are energetic beings, which means I'm not the body. I'm not my DNA, I'm not my genes, we are energy. speaking about us as soul. What is the field? I mean, today in quantum physics, they're talking about the field. In the Vedic tradition, we call it Brahman. It's that from which all is created, and which is both the creator and the creation, and infuses every aspect all the time. Isn't separate from, is constantly impacting, influencing in relationship with all of that which is existing in the field. So we're not the body, we're energy. And we have a body. And sitting on panels with these expert functional medicine doctors talking about keeping the physical body, the brain, the immune system healthy, and this beautiful place of existing where it's not one or the other. Because for most of us, I know for me, the world I was born and raised in was a world that was all about the body. What you look like, what you wear, the fitness of the body, the color of the skin, the health of the body, all of that. And then you come into a spiritual life, and it's like, oh, body, forget the body. I am so not the body. And we do that for a while. And we push away the body entirely until we come back to center, into a place of realizing, well, wait, I'm not the body, but I have a body. And just as the field and that which is in the field are constantly intersecting, co-creating, there really isn't a distinction between the creator and that which is created. In the same way, the soul, the spirit, the essence, the consciousness is in relationship with my physical body. A two-way street, a two-way relationship. Now, of course, one of them is born and dies. One of them never is born, never dies. But for the brief period of a few decades that they overlap, there's an intricate and intimate relationship between them. And I mentioned this very specifically here because it's really an opportunity for all of us on a path of sadhana to exist in a space that says, I have a body. The body is subject to rules of nature. If I walk off the building, I will fall to the ground because of this rule we call gravity. And for that, and because I've only got one, and because it is my medium through which I experience consciousness, if we're going to attain enlightenment in this lifetime, you're going to do it through your body. That's your vehicle. And so we take care of it. So this awareness, I have a body, I've only got one. It is the medium through which I experience soul, spirit, consciousness, love. Therefore, I need to take care of it and protect it and not be reckless and stupid. In Hindi, we say, sharir ek mandir hai. It means the body is a temple, literally a temple. And to hold the space that says, I'm not the body, I'm energy. And the thoughts that I have, this energy in my physical brain, but the energy taking place is interacting with the energy of the physical body in a way where literally that which I'm thinking, feeling, believing is co-creating not just my spiritual and emotional reality, but my very physical reality. So you can think yourself sick. You can stress yourself sick. And to hold these two realities simultaneously, of a grounding and an anchoring in knowing I'm spirit, I'm soul, I'm love, this too shall pass, and knowing I have this body, it is precious, it needs to be taken care of, but I don't need to engage in the thought indoctrination of fear. I can take care of my body without being afraid. I can take care of my body without dropping into survival mechanism that says all the toilet paper for me. I can take care of the body without having nightmares all night long that I'm going to get sick. And I can live in faith, in freedom, in love, in joy, without being reckless of my body. And that it's not either or, it's actually yes and. And it's a very special time for those of us on a path of sadhana. Because it's so easy to swing one way or the other. It's so easy for the anxiety to pull us out of the sadhana, to get into, yeah, that meditation is great, but oh my God, I gotta take care of myself. And it's also so easy to go the other way. And to say, I'm going to only focus on meditation and prayers because I don't believe in this. And only as I believe, so comes to pass. And to actually create the space within where both coexist. And I think that this lesson and the awareness of our interdependence across all borders and boundaries. We no longer live in a world where that which happens in some random city in central China doesn't impact people sitting on the banks of Ganga in Rishikesh or on a boat on the Pacific. Quantum physics these days tells us what our spiritual sages and gurus have been saying for thousands of years, which is we're all connected. Quantum physics has been saying it for a couple of decades. Spiritually, they've been saying it for thousands of years. Most of us are realizing it like in the last few months. But this isn't a new truth. We've just now been brought into a situation where we no longer can deny it. And I actually find that very exciting. Because I think the ripple impact of this, along with the tragedy, of course, but the ripple impact, I think, is going to be a much more heightened awareness of our interrelationship and our interconnection, and that the essentialness of ensuring that all people everywhere have access to clean water, proper hygiene, proper sanitation, proper health care. And all of the basic rights that most of us take for granted. When you realize how much of these epidemics gets spread in places where they don't have that access, that then ends up in our backyard. You realize we no longer can live in a vacuum. And we never could, but we could delude ourselves temporarily to thinking we could. We can't. So, as you're here these days, it's in the air. It's okay. No point in denying that it exists. It's like denying that it's raining outside. It's there. It's in the air. And be aware. Allow your awareness to just be very heightened of how is this impacting me? And then use that same discrimination that you've already developed to know when someone says, oh my God, you would be so much happier if you just bought this brand of eyeliner. Or you'd be so much happier if you just, could dine at that restaurant. That we know maybe their truth, but not my truth. Find that same discrimination as you get bombarded by messages of be afraid. And ask yourself, is that really my truth? Am I actually afraid? And if not, then make sure that you sit in the truth of who you are, rather than allowing that fear to come in. Because fear doesn't actually benefit us. It's an enormous immune system weakener. It's an enormous deterrent from meditation. Because what fear does is it throws us up into our minds. Right? I mean, when you get anxious, what happens? The mind starts going like this. And then you sit to meditate, and the mind cannot calm down. And so that fear renders you, A, less able to think clearly, B, less able to meditate, C, less able to love, because if I'm all up in my brain, I'm not in my heart. And clear thinking, meditation and love are really the very most essential tools that we have. So notice it as it enters you. And the good news also is that on a very logistic level, protecting yourself is very easy. So if you notice that there is fear, realize that with a few very, very simple steps, you can address that fear, acknowledge that fear, and create a situation where there really shouldn't be any fear. And then you have that beautiful opportunity to peel back all of that fear that's not yours, but that's coming at you from social media or news or messages from people in other parts of the world. And there's this beautiful meditation technique called Neti Neti, in which we sit to meditate upon the question of who am I? But instead of going in with who am I, we go in with what I'm not. And we begin by saying, I'm not this shawl, okay? Not my clothes. I'm not my skin. And you go through the first really obvious, easy ones relatively quickly. Then you start going deeper. I'm not my organs. And if you ever have a moment where the brain thinks, maybe I am, you realize, well, I could have a kidney transplant, for example, and I don't lose who I am. Could have my appendix removed, I don't lose who I am. There's no organ within me that if you removed it or transplanted it, I would somehow lose me. I donate blood, I receive blood, I don't lose me. So I'm not in my blood. Not in my bones, not in my cells, they're constantly dying and regenerating. Not in my emotions, because of course the emotions keep changing. Happy 1 minute, angry the next minute, frustrated the next minute, in despair the next minute. But as I do that, I stays. So I'm not the emotion. Because if I were angry, the minute I'm no longer angry, I would disappear. It doesn't. If I were happy, the minute I no longer felt happy, I would disappear. I don't. I'm not my thoughts. You know that because most of us have experienced, even momentarily, a place of not having a thought. And you know that you don't disappear, you don't cease to exist. So you go slowly, slowly through all of what you're not, until you come into that beautiful space of stillness. And this is a really good time to practice that with regard also to thoughts and ideas. What is not self? Not self. Not self. So a lot of us have got a lot of ideas and thoughts and things in our minds these days. Go within. Tease them apart. What's self, what's not? And that which isn't, give it back. It's important to be informed, but it's not important to be overwhelmed. And so, while you certainly want to know something if it were important, presumably there's a way of getting an important piece of information that doesn't require you to be on social media a lot. Be in constant contact with everyone all over the world who's afraid. See whether you can't kind of detox a little bit from that. To enable yourself to just experience right here, right now. I'm okay. Look at that. In this breath, everything's perfect. In this moment, everything is right. Give yourself that beautiful opportunity to experience those moments as much as you can. Just drop back into them. Drop back into them. Every time you find yourself in the head, just drop back in. Yeah. Are there any questions that anyone has? I actually wasn't even going to walk in and talk. I was only going to take questions, but there it is. If anyone has any questions, yes.
Sadhvi, it's good to see you again on your turf, and also happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
A couple things that came up. You said it's good to be informed, but not overwhelmed, overwhelmed. How do you find yourself? I guess with my, not being home and not, being there, but getting messages from people and whatnot. Balancing that out and not taking it too seriously, and trying to be here, trying to be present here, but also having some sort of, okay, well, what's going to happen or
Right.
What happens when I go there next?
So for me, it's usually about something that I have to make a decision about. If there's absolutely nothing that I can do in any way at all, or anything that I need to be involved in. So I'll give you two very just different logistic situations. One is you're a husband and a father. And the local government in your area has recommended that schools should close. But they haven't insisted that they close, and your kid's school is still open. And your wife needs to talk to you to make a decision about what to do with your kids. Well, so that's a decision you need to make. You need to be informed about, well, what's the rate? How many people in your city have it? What are other concerned parents doing? What steps are the school taking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Another situation is nobody's needing your advice. There's no one dependent upon you in any way like that. No one is looking to you to tell them what to do. They're just keeping you kind of constantly up to date so that you know that now there's no more hand sanitizer available in any store in the city that you live in. Information like that is probably not necessary to have. And so I would weigh it based on where you need to be responsibly involved to make decisions about other people's lives. You're the CEO of a company. Other people are running it temporarily in your absence. They need to know whether business should be closed or not. Well, again, you're going to need to get involved, and you're going to want to be involved in an informed sort of way. But if you're not, if there's not a situation where from sitting here you need to be actually making logistic decisions, I don't see any reason to follow how many new cases in which city, how much hand sanitizer is available, not available, what. I mean, it doesn't seem like information that serves any purpose whatsoever. And so for me, on a personal level, the news that matters to me is, are there any cases yet in Uttarakhand? No. Okay. Well, that's very good. That's an important piece of information, I feel, in an administrative capacity of an ashram to have. Because, of course, the steps that one takes when there are no cases are different than the steps one would take if there were cases. But that, again, has to do with making decisions that are impacting other people's lives. And beyond that, who has it in how many cities around the world? That's not something that I'm reading too much about. Sometimes you can't help it. You try to get one piece of information and you get 5. But things that would directly impact choices that I would make or choices that people I care about are making, it's information you want to have. Beyond that, I would try to detox as much as possible from it, because the virus is going to spread or not spread regardless of how much you know about it. You might as well utilize the time you've got here in a place that by God's grace may very well be one of the safest places in the world as far as we know right now. And realize that you're here for a reason. And use that time to dive deeply into the self and to have this opportunity to watch your thoughts arising within you in a situation where there isn't an external epidemic that's actually raging outside your door. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yeah, I have a follow-up.
Okay.
There is, in this specifically, it's in this training, in this, coming to, last time I was in Rishikesh, it was super easy for me to mentally be here, but not physically. It was my first time in India, and it was just, it was a lot. And this time it's very simple. It's quite easy, actually, to be here physically. It's been a breeze. But mentally, there's just so much resistance. There's so much resistance in the sitting. There's so much resistance in the love, the greater connectiveness and all that. There's just this big battle going on.
Are you able to tap into what that resistance is saying?
I feel as if that, with anything like that, you can use it as an ally, get to know it, and that there's probably some big shift or change that's going to come.
Yeah, of course. I don't mean that. What I mean very specifically is you sit to meditate, you close your eyes, resistance arises. What's the form of that resistance? A thought that says, I don't want to meditate, or just all sorts of random thoughts that prevent you from meditating without specifically saying, I don't want to meditate. I'm sorry?
Random thoughts.
Random thoughts, yes. Okay. This is, as I began by talking about the anxiety in the air. Anxiety brings us into our thinking minds, out of our hearts. And this is the dilemma. The more we are thinking about a problem, the more we are worried, fearful in the thinking mind, the more the anxiety brews. You can't be in your heart. This is where imagine you're in a loving relationship, okay? A marriage or otherwise, it doesn't matter. But some relationship, you're living together. One of you comes home at the end of the day. They don't say anything. You have a quick hug. But the other one immediately knows something is up. Says, what's going on? Now you may say nothing. Don't worry about it, something at work, it's working in your mind. The fact that you are in your brain in a state of anxiety, even having nothing to do, it's not anxiety about the person you love. Something happened in the office that day, but you're anxious about it. That state of anxiety in the mind prevents you from connecting in the heart to this person you've just come home with, to the point where they feel it immediately and they say, what's going on? We feel it when the person we are with is in a state of anxiety. Even if they're not speaking to us about it, and even if it has nothing to do with us, we feel it because what we feel is they're not with me. They're in their mind, not their hearts. And so this is where what I would say is, take the steps. I mean, they're very simple. We actually had a short Sevak meeting yesterday here with all of the people here. Half an hour. Here are the very simple steps you need to do to protect yourself. Take those steps, A, for the protection of your body, but B, so that your mind can be peaceful. Because see, if you've got all of these thoughts of fear coming in, and you're moving through the world not taking the steps that you should be that are simple to just protect the body, that fear is going to keep going. But if you know that you're actually taking the steps to protect you physically, the minute that the anxiety comes in, you can say, hey, wait, not self. Because I know I've done everything. This is now just sort of fear by osmosis. This is just, I've picked it up from the air, not self. This becomes like that voice of the culture saying, buy more, got to keep up with the people next door. That we become so good at realizing is not self. But each of us has to work with that, because otherwise you can't meditate. You can't love. The more in your mind you are, the less in your heart you are. And of course, anxiety is always looking for some target. And so the other thing you then find is that you become very negative. There becomes a lot of kind of blaming and complaining, because this is just what the mind does when it doesn't know where else to go. It's become hyper-activated by this onslaught, by fear. And then it doesn't quite know what to do with itself. So it does what it does best. It judges, it complains. It separates. And so just keep bringing it back to your heart. Just bring it back. It's going to be more difficult. It's absolutely going to be more difficult. This is why I said you got a 2 for 1. This is level 1 through 10 together. This is not a level 1 training.
And then just one quick, I just want to hear your opinion on one more thing. You said you can think yourself sick. Can you think yourself healthy?
Absolutely. 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 And you have a physical body. And the coexistence of those two realities is very important. Because yes, you can think yourself healthy and wash your hands. There's a great Sufi saying that says, have faith in Allah and tie your camel. Which I love, because it's just, it's so perfect in so many situations, but it's also so perfect here. Yes, think yourself well and wash your hands. Yes.
I just really feel like thanking you. I almost start to like Corona because we get this beautiful talk. No, I'm really from my heart, because they prepare us for more to come, maybe. And I'm so grateful. And that's on your birthday. I wouldn't do that on my birthday. No, really, I feel really I receive you, and it's so important. We need that.
Yes, thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So I live at Sattva, and I just want to know how I can be of best support to my mother from afar.
These days, there's 2 types of support people need. Logistic and emotional spiritual. And this goes back to that same thing about holding both of those in our space simultaneously. I'm not the body. I'm love. I'm consciousness. I'm soul. I'm spirit. I'm co-creating my existence. And I'm going to wash my hands. And I'm not going to hug people for a while. And I'm going to do whatever these logistic things are and hold that space. And so for your mom, what I would say is, see how much you can support her on both levels. So logistically, if she's older, can you help her not have to go out so much? Are there, grocery services online that you can get online here and order her groceries and have them delivered to her house? Is there someone else locally you know and love who you can coordinate with, who can bring things to her so she doesn't have to be out too much? And can you maybe send her some nice guided meditations? And, send her videos of the Aarti and send her, pictures of you sitting on the banks of Ganga being healthy and happy and smiley. Can you FaceTime her from sitting on the banks of Ganga being healthy? Whatever it may be, but I would say do both, because people are suffering on both levels. They're suffering logistically, especially people who are older or who are therefore at most risk. And they're suffering in fear. So help her get the logistics covered so that then you can help her get her heart covered. Yeah. Yes.
This question is just kind of an extension of what you spoke about in the questions that happened here. So, upon return home to the States, I will face my spouse who has gone off the charts with anxiety and fear.
Mm-hmm.
He's been kind of fear-based, but the things that he's gotten fearful about have come more slowly, and so we've been able to manage this. Now he's in outer space, and he needs nothing and he wants nothing from me other than for me to witness his sadness and make him feel better. But then that's it. So when there is this big divide that shows up, between two people. So I'm not too fearful, and I have a lot of resource, and I think he's known that about me, but he's off the charts now. And in 10 days, I will represent myself
Yes.
to him. And this just looks like it's going to be catastrophic. And so what, could you say about when that divide shows up really quickly?
Yeah.
And it's just there.
Well, first of all, for the next 10 days, I would see whether you can communicate strategically. Meaning, something that balances full and complete compassion for him and also full and complete compassion for you. So things like, can you leave voice messages for him rather than actually get in a two-way conversation?
That's all we're doing because he can't stand to talk to me.
It's actually good for you. And what I would say from your side is, don't feel the need to listen to his messages because you know what they say.
And I don't.
And just keep sending back messages of love, but so that at least you're not, while you're here, being pulled energetically into that, but also so that he doesn't feel abandoned in deep waters. So you're sending him the love, you're sending him the presence, without allowing him to drag you down into the deep water with him. On a purely logistic level, where do you live?
Los Angeles.
It's very possible that you're not actually going to fly back into LA in 10 days. Meaning it's just very possible that logistically whatever happens at the borders may happen in a way where you're actually not going to be walking into LA in 10 days, or that they're going to be quarantining you for doing that. Maybe 10 days plus 14 days of quarantine. A lot of places in the world are now doing that. So that's another thing for you to just be aware of, is that the universe may actually send you some extra time. And for him to have to draw upon inner resources to stay afloat at this time may actually, while horrendous for him in the moment, may actually end up being extraordinarily beneficial for him. But we'll see. And if you do find yourself back there, what I would say is make sure that you continue to have the ability to take care of yourself energetically. In relationships, we have rules. I mean, you don't have to necessarily have them posted up on the fridge, but the way that relationships work well is we kind of know, oh yeah, we don't talk about that. Or, oh yeah, I don't respond when he does that. Or, oh yeah, when she does that, I just go for a walk. I mean, this is, if you've had a relationship that's lasted for more than 5 minutes, you've had to develop some degree of those sorts of understandings and negotiations amongst you. And this may be a new one. And it may be simply enough. Enough for now. You may literally have to designate anxiety-free zones of your house. I certainly would make sure that your bedroom was anxiety-free. I mean, I literally would have a situation where you say, I'm fully prepared to sit out here on the living room couch with you and hold your hands while you breathe through your anxiety. But I'm not going to go in the bedroom and lose my sleep because you bring it into bed. So we're going to sit here together for however long you're able to do that. I'm then going to go into bed. And when you feel able to do that, please come. You're going to have to navigate it within your own relationship, but obviously in a way that is full of compassion for what he's going through, but also full of compassion for not just yours, but both of your needs to actually have energetic freedom from this. Because it's not good for him to carry it all the time. And a lot of times we delegate certain boundary-making roles in relationships to each other. And you may be the one to whom the boundary-making has been delegated in this way. But realize that you're making that boundary for both of you. You may want to delegate anxiety-free times of the day. One of the things that Puja Swamiji suggests so frequently is to have a certain period of the time each day of being in silence. And with kids, in a family, kids are fine. They understand, oh yeah, mom doesn't, this is mom's silent time. Okay? They'll learn. And you literally may just want to establish kind of no anxiety times. And you can even, depending on how outer space he is, you may even be able to bring a slight bit of humor into it, just to bring some lightness into it, of like, all right, we've got 10 minutes until our no anxiety time. You want to have a really good run for it right now? Something light and gentle that just might crack a little bit into it. And you'll breathe through it. Like people breathe through everything. Make sure to keep up with your practice. I would spend as much time outside as you possibly could, just literally energetically grounding. Sit in your backyard as much as you can. Yeah. Yes.
When I came on this trip, I came with a very clear question of where I am, like in my life, and wanting to deepen my practice. And I have a family, a husband and a kid, and another one on the way. And I own a couple yoga studios, and I feel that all of the yoga people in my life are pulling me away from yoga. It's really fascinating. And so I came here with this intention of, do I continue my businesses because I know that a lot of people who come into the business are receiving healing from it, but it's killing me? Or, do I spend more time with my family and on my yoga practice? And so what I've realized here with the environment and everything that's going on, my family and everybody who actually needs me is like, stay there. And everybody in my business, all my yoga teachers, all my people who work at the studio are sending me all these fear messages, just like on and on and on and on. So how do you know when the messages are, I'm not interpreting, you know what I mean? So I'm taking in all this information, and I asked a question that like, this is what I'm gonna let sit when I'm there, and I'm like, is this my answer? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, what I would look at is, we're in a situation where you have the businesses. And that's important because it's a different question once you have them than, I'm trying to decide whether I want to open a yoga studio or not. Your situation is, I have them. Presumably you've put a lot of time and energy and resources into them. They've also, we know, benefited lots of people. And the question is it yoga that's killing you? Or is it the people you're doing business with? And if so, is there a way to do yoga?
Well,
with the studios.
Them all off. People were like sending, I'm like, you're done, I'm gonna come home, you're done, you're done. I'm like, that's it. You know, the people rise to the top, we're just like, well, I'm just gonna do videos, and can we post them on, I'm like, oh, good, like, you get a raise, you get a raise. This can't be right.
Well, it's interesting because when you have a deep spiritual transformation, one of the things that comes up for a lot of people when they've been here for a while and are going back is the awareness that within their friend circle, there's going to have to be some changes made. And there are going to be some in the friend circle who are in line with the awareness, the reality, I don't want to say the new you, because it's not the new you, but the new awareness of you. And there are some who aren't. And that you can't change and yet hold on to all of the same patterns in people. And so, and a spiritual transformation and who's in line with it, who's good with it, who tries to take you out drinking again, they're really clear indicators of, all right, yeah, you're going to be an ally on this. You're clearly someone who's too threatened by it for whatever reason. Not an ally. So I don't actually see anything wrong with you getting some clarity while you're here of people who are in alignment with A, what you want for your life, B, what you want to transmit and teach through your yoga studios. Because, for us here at Parmarth, it's a deep, deep, deep truth, and kind of the core of our yoga programs is, guess what? It's not all about asana. Guess what? It's not about how limber you are, or how flexible you are. It actually is about who you are in your body. The limberness or tightness of the body is irrelevant. It's who you are.
And I have a layer on question to that. So like looking deeper into it, it's fascinating. The teachers who are having the biggest struggle with this all also have the largest classes. And I'm in this battle of people love drama. And it's like,
Yeah. So, you have to be careful, though, there, that we're not cutting people out of your life just because having them in your life challenges you to an extent that isn't comfortable. And so it's important, and the good news is it doesn't seem like you have to make an immediate decision, but it's important to sit with who I'm removing because they really are not in alignment with me, with what I want to bring to the world, with the vision of what we're trying to offer through this yoga studio. And whose personality, for whatever reason, kind of rubs me a little bit the wrong way, but actually they seem to be doing great, touching a lot of people, liked by a lot of people. And in situations like that, it may be really good to look within and to wonder whether, maybe there's something in me I can look at that can enable me to see this person with more open and compassionate eyes. And you'll know, the deeper you go into really what your vision with the studios is. Because I don't think the answer is I have to get out of it. I think the answer is I have to use them for something that is more in alignment with who I am. Which, by the way, is what people need. Much more than limber hips. People need a touch. And there's nothing about having a perfect trikonasana that prevents you from having the touch. You can actually do both. But we have to realize that it's not just about the perfect Trikonasana. And so for you, I think, to take this time of restructuring the vision and who is going to be in alignment with the vision, who's going to be in support of the vision, keeping them on. Some it will be obvious are not in alignment at all, they'll be removed. And presumably there'll be some that there's some question about where, you're not quite sure. Something does rub you a little funny, personality-wise, but look, they do seem to be really beloved. They do seem to be really having an impact. All right, so you deep breathe those for a little while and you watch them. And you watch. And you watch. Because also it doesn't have to all happen at once. Every person who leaves or comes in changes the energy of the place. And then everybody else readjusts. It's like if you sit down at a table, if you've got a 10-person round table, and you sit down and 9 people are talking gossip trash about somebody sitting at the table next to you. Chances are you'll get drawn into that. But if you sit down at the table and the 9 people are talking about their meditation and, a spiritual retreat that they're going on and the service work that they're doing, well, that's what you're going to get drawn into. And so your energy when you stand up from that table is going to be completely different based on who was sitting there when you sat down. And whether you just spent the last 2 hours trashing everybody at the table next to you, or you just spent the last 2 hours talking about meditation and spirituality. And so as you shift people one by one, the energy of the whole place will shift. And so give it time, take it slow, and just keep recalibrating with what's your vision. What's the vision? Who's in alignment with it? Yeah. But I think that through the 2 studios, you've got a wonderful opportunity that took a lot of hard work and resource to reach to actually create ripple impact of change in the world, which is what we need. And just because it's called a yoga studio doesn't mean that you have to do it the way everybody else does it. You could make it actually a studio of yoga, which is union. Imagine that. Like, imagine actually a place where people came and experienced a level of unity with themselves, with God, with the world. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? And their bodies get healthy at the same time. Like, how beautiful. Yeah, we'll take this as the last question.
How would you put universal love into words?
Universal love. It's love of God. I can't love everyone because I don't know everyone. Forget even the dramatic hang-ups of the problems that I have loving the people I know. I mean, forget that. Let's assume that each of us was fully enlightened, fully able to love all of those we know unconditionally and completely. Okay? You still couldn't do it because you don't know everyone. How could we possibly experience universal love? We don't even know everybody on our block. And for me, when I think about these beautiful places of convergence of religions, I think about teachings from the Hindu tradition here in India that tell us Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It means the world is a family. The whole world is a family. Think about teachings from Jesus Christ, who says, love thy neighbor as thyself. this is something that's actually percolated in my mind for a long time. And it used to really bother me because I'm a scientist, I'm an academic, so I've got this intellectual habit. And I used to think, well, what actually does that mean? Like, which neighbor? Right? I mean, just the guy next door? Or do you have to go 2 doors down, or 3 doors down, or a block down, or a 50-foot radius, a 50-mile radius? Like, what counts as your neighbor? And I realized very quickly in the analysis that there was no way to decide. He had not clarified it. It wasn't a matter of proper translation or interpretation. There was no further clarification. Which led me into the awareness that since he hasn't clarified it, there's no way for us to say, oh, well, he must have only meant the guy next door. It could very well be a 50-mile radius. I mean, is there a limit? Mr. Rogers' neighborhood? Like, how big is that neighborhood, right? I mean, how many of us watched him on TV feeling like, yeah, I'm in your neighborhood, right? I mean, that neighborhood went all over the country. So what I realized was he's actually meaning love everyone. Because there is no place you can draw a line. And if he had really meant only the guy next door, or only the people on your block, or only the people in a 50-mile radius, he would have said it. But he didn't. Which means to me that what he meant was love everyone. And since we don't know everyone, or even know all our neighbors, there isn't any way to love them. And so it becomes an absolutely moot instruction. But our scriptures, our canon, they're not moot instructions that can't possibly be followed ever by anyone. If we've been handed these, whether we've been handed them in the Bhagavad Gita by Krishna, in the Bible by Jesus, in the Torah by Moses, I mean, it's irrelevant. If we've been given this by the divine in a scripture, clearly we're supposed to follow it. And so you realize, well, all right, so we've been given all of these different teachings in the different world's religions that in different languages and different ways tell us, love everyone. But they know that we couldn't know everyone, which to me means there's only one answer. It means love God. And it means realize that God lives in everyone. There's no other way the scientist in me can understand that instruction. Or the spiritual person in me. I mean, either, but the spiritual person, of course, it's like, yeah, of course it means love everyone and God is in everyone. But even from an intellectual, academic standpoint, there's no other possible translation other than love God and realize that God is in everyone. And so I think that is what universal love is love God and realize that everyone, everything is pervaded by the divine, which of course the Hindu scriptures also say. But the other scriptures also say it as well in different ways. When they speak about the infinite nature of God. Well, if God is infinite, it means everywhere. If there's any place that God doesn't exist, it means God is finite. I mean, if we say, well, God exists everywhere except in my glass, well, then that means God is finite. I mean, God ends right here. And if we say God is infinite, it must mean everywhere. And so for me, that's the only way that I can understand the concept of universal love as well as these teachings of love all. Because how can you love people if you don't know them? Only if you love God and realize, well, they're all God. I mean, it's like saying, you have a beloved. There's an infinite number of photographs of your beloved. Naturally, you're going to love all of them. I mean, some you may find a little bit more attractive. You may say that they were more photogenic in some than others. But ultimately, every one of those photos is going to fill you with a feeling of love because it's a photo of your beloved. And if we can do that with the creation, then I think we start to begin to touch the possibility of actually following those instructions.
Om Bhurбhuvah Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Om Bhurбhuvah
Saviturvarenyam